Hi, good morning. Welcome to this MOG Sunday. Today's session will join with the arts leader Ruchira for a talk tracing her remarkable part of India's diverse cultural landscape. Beginning with a bold shift from chartered accountancy to arts administration, Ruchira has held leadership roles at Think Arts, Art Think South Asia, Artsila, and British Council India. Over a quarter of a century, she has founded organizations, curated festivals, mentored artists and educators. She is a recipient of prestigious fellowship from Art Think South Asia, the International Society for the Performing Arts, and the Australia Arts Leadership Program. And before I hand over the mic to her, I would like to appeal for our donations also, that this MOG Sundays runs on contributions from people like you and organizations who believe in us. So there's a QR code outside, if you could please donate, not as a charity but as a participation in this movement of knowledge gathering. And before I hand over the mic to Ruchira, I would also like to say that if we have ever sparked a thought in you, these MOG Sundays, made you curious, made you feel connected, please support us. And I welcome Ruchira now.
Thank you, Nilankur and MOG, for inviting me. And maybe before I start, I'll just continue with the appeal that Nilankur made. Not that they asked me to do it, but I really think I have been fortunate to attend some talks here, and I think it's really wonderful, this forum that you've created. Not just because you invited me, but because one has met a diverse range of people here, and this is a great way to spark thoughts, conversations. So yeah, continue this good work, and I am sort of seconding the appeal to all of you. Yeah, the title, Everything You Can Imagine, I realize that this is it's a title that promises a lot, and maybe I'm not going to be able to live up to it, but this was really what came to my mind when Nilankur invited me and said, can you talk about all that you've done in the last few years in the world of arts. And when I started thinking of the kinds of experiences I've had, it is really everything you can imagine. I mean, at one point, I remember for a concert by Bismillah Khan Saab, he said, "नहीं concert तो करेंगे, पहले हजाम तो लाइए." And I was like, "Hajam, kahan se?" This was in Bangalore, and we didn't know. We were in Yelahanka in some really far off guest house. And then, of course, we had to figure out, where do we get in hajam. Then we went and met that. And of course, Bismillah Khan Sahab was quite old, so we couldn't take him. We had to bring the hajam to Ustad ji. And this hajam was very curious. He's like, "What, you want to take me all the way to Yelahanka from Shivaji Nagar?" And, there have been instances like that. There was another time when Joachim, a wonderful, wonderful artist, sadly, he's also no more with us. He was coming from Germany for performances of a really lovely piece in Bangalore, Bombay and Jaipur. And 2 days before his flight, he says, "Hi Ruchira, I'm all set for the flight and I'm looking forward to this wonderful tour you've put together." And I said, "Okay, so you've got your visa?" And he was like, "Visa?" And I said, "Oh my goodness, you haven't applied for your visa." I mean, it was obviously somewhere down the line, someone in the team forgot to tell him that he needs a visa. And he had never traveled this far. He had only traveled within Europe and UK. So this concept of visa was something alien to him. And then we had to very quickly get an express visa for him and change the entire program and, get some other artists to perform in his. It was like crazy. So we've had, and then another one with Artsila, when in Shantiniketan we had an artist who was going to perform, and he said, "Yeah, and everything is fine, I really don't need much, but I need some yoga bricks." Shantiniketan, for all of you, if you all know, it's a small, sleepy university town. I don't think anyone even knows what a yoga brick is. People do yoga, but I don't think they use yoga bricks. Frankly, even I didn't know what it is. And we spent, like, we probably went to as many shops as possible and then realized this is something we'll have to probably order online because we can't. I thought we'd rent some yoga bricks, but that was not to happen. Another time, we had an artist and a speaker who were going to travel with me from Calcutta to Shantiniketan for a talk. And we got onto the train. I was with the artist, and the speaker had said that they will reach, and they weren't there. And I was like, the train's going to leave in 5 minutes, where are you? He says, yeah, I'm on my way to the station, don't worry. And then the train took off, and then he said, oh, I just missed the train. I came to the platform and I saw the train leaving. I said, okay, will you take the next train? And it's a 3-hour journey, and the talk was about 7-8 hours later. So it's not like, I wasn't panicking. I knew you can take another train and come. And he said, no, you know what, I'll just drive down. I have my car and driver, and we'll just, I said, that's great. I mean, thank you for doing that. And then when it was about an hour left for the talk, and there was no sign of him, I called and I said, you know, are you nearby? Where are you? And he said, oh, you know what? I just realized that we've been driving in the opposite direction. So I think, okay, so this is not happening. Then very quickly I had to change hats from being a producer to being a speaker, quickly go through the questions that he had prepared. Bless him that he had at least sent us those questions. And then I sat and very, intelligently read out those questions and did the event. So we've had, like, I could go on, and the rest of the talk could be all about that, but I don't think that's why I'm here. So let me start at the very beginning. Like Nilankur said, I've moved from CA to the arts, and it happened by chance, as it happens with most of us, with many good things in our lives that happen by chance. So I was studying to be a chartered accountant. Is there any CA here in the room? Okay, then I can say that it's a very dry course. Okay, there's really little joy because you're surrounded by numbers and you're surrounded with very, very serious-looking people who are going on their business about, crunching those numbers. And I was one of the first few batches where you could join CA right after school. Now, why I did that, that's another story. We are not going there. So I was fairly young, and everyone else was doing CA after they'd finished their graduation. So I was quite young, and I was surrounded by a lot of men who were constantly sitting with these numbers. And I was in Calcutta. I didn't know too many people. I was with my grandmother there. And I said, where can I meet young people? I'm stuck in this office all day doing audit, which, by the way, the term might sound great, but all I was doing is literally looking at bills, seeing the number, and tallying it with a number in some register. How interesting can that be? Tell me. 455, 455, 392, 392, literally something like that. And I needed to meet other people, do some other things. And on Sundays, which could have been my free day where I could have met other people, we of course had our Sunday tests, which I had to qualify to be able to go to the next stage of my CA studies. So I was a bit desperate, and then my cousin, who was not living there then, but she had been part of this group called SPIC MACAY, which is, some of you might be familiar with it. It's a Society for Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture amongst youth. So big name. But basically what they did is they went to schools and colleges and organized classical music concerts. Now, classical music concert is not something that I was either familiar with or very keen about, but the young people was something I said, that's it. That is what I want to do. I'll go and meet a bunch of young people. I said, yes, I want to volunteer for this. Tell me what I need to do. And then I met a bunch of young people who were all in various parts of, from various parts of Calcutta and doing, studying graduation, or someone who had just completed graduation, a few of them who were in class 11th and 12th in school. And I took all the volunteer duties which were of outside the auditorium. So I would man the shoe counter, I would go and pick up the artist from the airport, or the train station, I would go and talk to the, accommodation place and try and get a deal to get, discounted rates, etc. And I was very happy. I started meeting young people. One day, we were told that the college where the performance was going to happen, that college has given off early, so there are very few students now for the performance, and we can't have someone like Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia performing and so few people in the audience. So all volunteers, please go in. And I very reluctantly went in. I said, oh my goodness, this is not for me. I'm going to get really bored. And surprisingly, I was not bored at all. I loved it. I had never heard classical music before. I was an adult, but it was just so beautiful, and I realized that I had really missed out on something, special in my life. So from that day onwards, I not only continued to be a volunteer for SPIC MACAY, but I also became an audience member, and I would, and I've seen so many concerts. I mean, it's been just fabulous moments. We used to have these all-night concerts where the first artist would start performing at 7 p.m. and the last artist would end at 7 a.m. And it was just, in the midst of all the hassles that go through in, producing an event like that and supporting that, the logistics of it, the sheer joy and moments of inspiration were fabulous. And this happened alongside my dry CA thing that was continuing. So when I finally became a chartered accountant, at that point I was a trainee at Citibank. It was again very glamorous, especially for a 19-year-old. We could get pizza when we were working late. We could get a taxi back home. This is for all of you who are, in a generation of Ubers and all. It was a very different time 25 years back. Taxis was not something that everyone could afford. So and I got a healthy stipend. So it was a very great time for me. But I think somewhere I felt there was something different which happened through the work that I did at SPIC MACAY. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I don't think I can even today. But I knew that there was some dilemma within. And so I did, with all the money that I was able to save through the Citibank generous stipend that I got. I went on a solo, this was again 25 years back, women's solo trips was not so common then. I went on a solo South India trip. I don't know why South India, maybe because it was far, I don't know, really no reasons. I went to Kanyakumari, Kottayam, Alleppey, and completely on my own, staying in ashram, like the Aurobindo ashram in Pondicherry, and small guest houses where I could, using the STD booth in every city to call my parents to say I'm not dead in a ditch. And by the time I finished that trip, I think I'd made up my mind. I knew that there was something that SPIC MACAY gave me that Citibank unfortunately didn't. I knew it was going to be hard because there was no money when it came to SPIC MACAY. And of course my parents didn't think it was a great idea. They were like, you have to be on your own, figure it out for yourself. And that's how it began. But 25 years later, do I regret the step I made? Not at all. Sometimes I do wish, damn it, I wish I had that job at Citibank where I could have, supported a lot more arts and probably been one of the donors. But yeah, it's been a fabulous, fabulous, journey. So taking you very quickly, because I've also, when I was sitting and making this, I realized I've also been very fortunate to work across the country. Internationally, and in many different, wearing many different hats. Everyone doesn't have that privilege, and I'm really thankful for powers that be that made it possible. So for many years, I continued in SPIC MACAY. I moved to Bangalore, I got married, and then I started working towards something that was recently set up then called SPIC MACAY Foundation, where we would do large concerts to raise money for SPIC MACAY. And one of the concerts I helped produce was Pandit Ravi Shankar and Anushka Shankar. And oh my goodness, that was like at another level altogether. It was, there were people, Chaudhary Hall is a big hall in Bangalore. It was sold out, and there were people calling to say, look, we don't mind standing in the aisles, but can we please buy a ticket? Can you please let us get in? The chief minister asked for a meeting and said, we would like to have Panditji as our state guest. I didn't even know what all that meant. And it was, a totally different sort of experience, and a beautiful one. So I was also traveling around North Karnataka and setting up SPIC MACAY chapters in smaller towns, and it was again a really wonderful time. Then I moved to Calcutta in 2010. I joined a festival called Rabindra Utsav as a festival manager. No prizes for guessing. Rabindra Utsav was a festival based on Tagore. However, what was very interesting is that the festival was looking at new works that would be responding to Tagore's either written works or his philosophy, and these were works performed by people from outside of Calcutta or outside of Bengal, which meant that this festival ended up having Neelam Mansingh in Chandigarh work on a Punjabi translation of a piece and then perform it in Punjabi, direct a play in Punjabi. We had in Manipuri by Ratan Thiam, in Hindi, in Marathi, in English as well. And I got a chance to again meet a range of artists from across India working in theatre, music and dance. It was a performing arts festival. And around that same time, I also, for reasons unknown, decided not to send my children to school. I had 2 daughters, and me and my partner, we said, you know what, let's just keep them at home and let's see how long we can just have them learn things at home. So they were very much part of Rabindra Utsav. They used to be part of meetings. They would sit. I had this artist, Preeti Atreya, she's a contemporary dancer. And she said, Ruchira, I was rehearsing and I saw these 2 little girls who were quietly sitting through my rehearsal. Do you know who they are? And I said, yeah, they are my daughters. So they learned, very intuitively, about the arts, and not just the arts. I also knew that I needed help as an arts manager. So I taught my older daughter, how to do Excel. I said, this is how you make a sheet. So my invitation sheet, sorting, alphabetical order, all that she learned was because of, the festival. And I also used them to sell our brochures. Because imagine, can you say no to a 5-year-old who comes to you and say, will you buy this festival brochure? So they were very much a part of my, journey. So it was, and I was happy to be able to work in a space. I think that's also special about the arts, that children were very welcome, and my boss then, he at times would actually babysit my children while I would go for important meetings to try and raise funds, etc. So that was from 2010 to 2013 I worked with them, and in 2013 we decided that maybe it's time for the children to go to a school, because they were, my older one was a teenager and soon to be a teenager, and as a teenager you want your own tribe, and I didn't know any other homeschooling parents at that point. So we said, okay, if they go to, and of course if one goes to school the other would too. And I felt that if they go to school, I'll suddenly have a lot more time on my hands, and what is it that I want to do? And I felt that the various arts experiences that my children had been lucky to grow up with, what if I could create a way to share these arts experiences with more children? My children also had been lucky to travel to Europe and see some really award-winning shows. It's not possible for everyone to go there. It's not even possible for us to keep going there. So can I bring a show from there for children here to see? Can I create pieces which are, little out of the box? And that's how Think Art started. The name was, again, thanks to a friend of mine, Shaili Satyu. She has a lovely theatre company called Gillo, where they make work for children and young people. And I had told her about this idea, and she said, Ruchira, I'm coming to Calcutta with a play for this festival, so I can stay on an extra day and do a set of plays for you if you want to start your company that you were talking about. I said, oh, like in 3 months? She said, yeah. So I said, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, because, you save the entire travel cost, right? Because they're anyway going to be there. And then she said, so it's done, then I'm booking my ticket for 1 day later. I said, yes, thank you very much. Yes, now I will see how I do this. Where do I put up these shows? And then she called me a week later and said, Ruchira, so what's the name of the organization? I said, which? She said, the one that you're starting, because I need to start. She's very organized. And she said, I need to start putting it in my newsletter and my planning. And I was, oh, I haven't thought of a name. And then that's how Think Arts was something that just came out. And it stayed. It's been more than 10 years now, and we've managed to do a bunch of things. I'll share a few stories from some of the experiments we tried there. And then cut to 2020. Again, I have to thank ThinkArts for it, because through ThinkArts I met Sanjeev Kumar. Some of you might know. He's the founder of Archila. He's the founder of many things, including Archila, these multi-art spaces. At that point, he was looking at starting a center in Patna. And we had a chat, and he said, would you like to join Archila Patna as artistic director? It had been about, it had been around a while since I had been in ThinkArts, and I knew I didn't ever want to scale up ThinkArts a lot, because that brings its own complications of funding and ethics and politics and lots of things. So I said, maybe Archila is a good idea. It sounds nice. I really find myself aligned with the way they are talking about the arts. And that's how I became the artistic director. At that point, I was going to only look at Archila Patna. And then suddenly, as some of you in the room know, we had an Archila in Ahmedabad, an Archila in Shantiniketan, Archila in Delhi, and Patna is hopefully opening soon. And that was another fabulous journey where, I actually was able to use a lot of my learnings as an arts entrepreneur into putting systems in place, figuring out how does one start a venture, how do you keep that growing, how do you bring new people into it, how do you even set systems in place in terms of even, how much do you program, how less do you program. And it was a fabulous experience. But in 2023, I saw an opening for the Director Arts India at British Council. And again, you'll find this about me. Sometimes I'm not able to articulate why I might, but there was something within me that I felt that maybe I need to just, push and go to something different, something bigger. And at that point, both my children were out of school, or almost out of school, the younger one was, which meant that I didn't have to really be located in Calcutta, where I was then, and I could move to Delhi with this big role. And I just on a whim applied for it. I had never sat in an interview before that, except Citibank ages ago, 25 years ago. And then I got the role, and I joined. As some of you can tell, it was a very short tenure, but again, it was a tenure where I learned a lot. I think, the fact that it's an organization with over 10,000 employees working in 100 plus countries gives you a sense of some of the, processes that are in place to manage such a big, unit. And I think that was something that I was also craving for, to want to understand how do these things work when you scale, because I knew ThinkArts I would never scale up. Archila was at definitely a much larger scale, but not at that scale. So that was something that I wanted to learn, I think, for myself. And it was fabulous. It was a great role. It was, I worked with a wonderful team across India. I worked with many, many colleagues across the UK and in other places. And hopefully what I wanted to bring to that role also was an understanding from the arts sector of some of the challenges that I had observed as a grantee of several British Council projects. So I hope I was able to bring a bit of that. But then in 2 years, I think sometimes when you know, like I said, when I know. So even the decision to leave was something that happened very intuitively. I felt that I was missing being very close to the arts and getting my hands dirty. And, I love solving those problems that I talked about. I love the problem of having to find a hajam or getting a visa in the last minute and changing projects around. So I was, I think, missing a little bit of that. I wanted to come back into doing more, work close to the ground. And thankfully, my good fortune that the artistic director role at Archila was still available. Sanjeev was still very gracious and keen to have me back. And the only difference this time was that have come back now in a part-time capacity, so I also have the ability, not too much time that I have left, but I do have the ability to be able to support other organizations where I work as a consultant and advisor. So that's been my journey, and I'd love to share a few interesting stories that made for this journey to be worth calling, me being invited here. These photographs, gosh, I was very young then. But these are from a beautiful project called Our History, Their Times. This was in 2014. My daughter had joined school, and she was talking about how history was not at all as interesting as it was when she was she was being homeschooled, because at that point we would really go to a monument and start reading a whole lot about things that happened when it got built, or when we would travel, we would discover stories, and people would share stories with them. I really used to outsource my homeschooling, by the way. If you're thinking I used to do that, no. There were people who would tell interesting facts and stories to my children, and that's how they grew with all of that. So I began thinking about history, and really how do children engage with history, and how can we make that a more visceral experience, whether we can. And for me, always, whenever I think of a problem, the solution lies in the arts. And that's how this idea came about. Think Arts was a year old then, and this installation of the cloth that you can see, this is housed inside a cemetery called the South Park Street Cemetery. It's a 200-year-old cemetery. It is not active anymore. It is recognized as a heritage site by the Archaeological Society of India, and it is a cemetery which has these large monuments, beautifully built monuments, and a lot of course, history there. And I was curious, what if we brought a bunch of young people into that place and told them to look at the stories here and try and connect it with the city today, 200 years later. What is it? What are the connections that they draw? And I have a lot of faith in young people, but when we started this, all my friends, they said, so it's a project with teenagers working out of school on Saturdays with art and history. Ruchira, this is not going to work. No one will be interested. Teenagers don't do these things. I said, okay, but let me try. I mean, so I wrote some letters to some schools, and 7 schools signed up with 5 kids each, 5 students each, and we met them. And this project has surprised me time and time again. I mean, if you just see that, basically that cloth contains, historical things through the years that have happened in Kolkata. And on the table behind, there were students who had made a recipe book using ingredients which were prevalent in the last, in 200 years back, but are not seen today. And that meant that they really went and researched, about what was being cooked then, and what were the, culinary sort of ingredients being used. And that was just one. There was another where the young people, they found a dome. I wish I had a picture of that, but I don't have. They found one monument which had a dome which was very similar to their school dome. And they said, okay, who used to build these kind of structures? And they realized, very wealthy people were able to build those structures. And then when they started doing the research, they realized that for a lot of people, the wealth came from opium trade. So they created an installation called Dig a Little. And they had these poppy flowers made out of paper. And when you picked up a flower, you could read a fact about an opium trade. I mean, this was a boys' school that had put this together so beautifully. And this, contrary to the, what my friends had said, we not only had all the students stay on through the project, but the day before we were going to open, and then we of course put up these pieces at the cemetery. That was another story where the people just didn't know what I wanted to do. They were like, what is it that you want to do here? You can't install things. Then I realized, okay, installations is probably not the right word to use for people who are not, looking at it from the arts lens. I said, no, we'll just put up some painting, some cloth, those things. He said, okay, not permanent. But why? I said, I want young people to engage with history, and I feel this is a nice spot to do that. Reluctantly, or maybe because they got fed up of seeing my face, they said, fine, do it, just no permanent structures. The day it opened with these, all the students, Dig a Little, this one, and many other installations, the secretary of the burial board came and said, I'm so sorry, I just didn't have the vision. You have done a remarkable job. Can you please do it for another year as well? And through the week, we had over 1,000 visitors. This cemetery closes at 4 o'clock because it gets dark in December. We had over 1,000 people who, and at that time we didn't have Instagram. I don't know how these people came because we didn't have a budget to do publicity really. And what was the most heartening thing was that the day before we opened the exhibition, if I may call it, I told, that time Think Arts was 2 people, me and another colleague. So I told my colleague maybe we should give a treat box to all the students. They put in so much hard work. So I said, can we get 35? She said, Ruchira, but we'll need 50. I said, what are 50? Why? Teachers? She said, no, but don't you know, over the months, so many extra students have joined the project. So it wasn't that people left, but their friends came and joined because they said, we rarely come across an opportunity where we are let, to be ourselves and given agency to create something in response and put it here. And that's why we are here. So it was one of my, I think, most moving experiences. I've talked about this in conferences in New York and Edinburgh, and then of course we did do a second edition, and we didn't do a third because I think the purpose had been met. There was a poets evening that was held at that space. There was a concert that was put together at the space. The English teacher who was our mentor for this project started doing regular walks, and suddenly that space had discovered another lease of life, if I may use that term. This is another story that I want to share. So like I said, before I started Think Arts, I had worked with Rabindra Utsav, which was a national level festival. So I knew everything about working across the country. But with Think Arts, I had ambitions of bringing these fabulous works from, abroad to India, pieces that I'd seen, pieces that had moved me. And I was very conscious that I didn't want to bring a piece that one might just see here, because then I would rather just support the Indian company make that piece. So this was a piece called HG, so by a company called Trickster P in Switzerland. HG is Hansel and Gretel, and this was an installation where there were 9 rooms, and you had to wear a headphone and just go follow the guided instructions and walk through the different rooms. And at some point, depending on how responsive you were, you would realize that you are in the story of Hansel and Gretel. And it was amazing how they had done it. The room with the oven, you really felt warm and you really wanted to run away. They had these chicken bones that were placed, it was just very, very beautifully done and really sensitively sort of crafted. So I wanted to bring this piece to India because I thought, it will be fabulous to have that kind of experience for children, primarily for children, but also grown-ups. And I went to the Swiss Arts Council. The Swiss Arts Council doesn't have an office in Calcutta. No one in Delhi knew me. Why would they? And I just went and I said, I want to bring this piece to India. And they said, okay. And why don't you send us a proposal, we'll see. Typically how the response that I would give when I was in British Council, something very typical. The good thing that happened was that the director had actually seen this piece and had tried to get this piece to India, and theatre venues were like, what are you saying, ma'am, 9 rooms, stage de denge, stage ke upar perform karenge, 9 rooms kaise hoga? There were people who were just not able to get what she was saying. So at least she said, oh, so this girl knows about this piece and is willing to take that chance. And then I said, okay, I'll put together a proposal, fabulous. And I knew that there were just 2 people for this, in this production. So I said, 2 people's airfare kitna hoga, and 2 people stay in Calcutta, and maybe we'll do one more place. Should be easy. I should be able to get the funds. Then when I was speaking to Christina from Trickster P, she said, yes, Ruchira, you're right, there's 2 people, but there's also 1,000 kilos freight that we'll have to... I was like, come again, 1,000? I mean, I said, that just blew my mind. I was like, there's no way I can, get support to bring this kind of a piece, given that I've never worked on any international work before. Swiss Arts Council doesn't know me at all. But I said, okay, let us be brave. And I went ahead and I made the proposal. And you will not believe it, we got the funding. Perhaps because the director had seen the piece herself, perhaps they had funds available, perhaps they wanted to support new organizations, I don't know what it was. It was just unbelievable that we were able to bring this piece to India to, present it. And so this was the first international piece that Think Arts brought to India. Since then it has brought 20. And what was this? There was many firsts with this first proposal that we wrote, and one call I will never forget. My colleague, remember the 2 of us who would work, she called me and said, Ruchira, someone from DB Shankar has called asking for ATA Carnet. All of this was Greek and Latin. I'm like, what is ATA Carnet and who is DB Shankar and why are they calling me? I had no clue what it meant, and then I realized that 1,000 kilos that has to come, there's a whole process, customs, and I had no clue about how to do this. But again, like I said, fear not. I said, okay, we will find out, we will figure out what this is. Google was not so friendly then. But we figured out, and the team there, they had traveled abroad a lot, of course. They were like, okay, Ruchira, you clearly don't know much. Let us tell you how this happens. And we were able to actually bring it. We took it to Calcutta and Bangalore. And till today, there are some people who come back to me to say that was when we knew that Think Arts is going to do something very special because of the piece that you started with. If you ever get to see this piece in India or anywhere else, don't miss it. I had adults, I had young people, all coming out of that experience feeling incredibly moved. Okay, there's a video which I thought I should get a pause, so I've planned it well. Yeah, just before we start, give me a second, I'll just speak about it. So I don't obviously want to talk about every piece that we brought to India or every show that we have helped produce, because that would get quite boring. But I do want to talk about Dreamscape, which I'll share a video with as well. Again, a lot of the decisions I've taken have been, something that I felt personally very strongly. I've noticed a lot of, once my children went to school, I suddenly started noticing children a lot more, and the lives they lead and the routines that they have. And I realized children in cities don't live like children in Goa. You have to just switch and realize that they very rarely are they engaging with natural materials. And I felt, when we were young, playing with moss, then soft moss or bark of a tree, or climbing trees, or playing with different kinds of stones, that was fairly commonplace. But children today are not, at least in the urban, very busy, scenarios, not getting that experience. And I said, what if, I'll play it now. And I thought, what if I create an experience for children to engage with all their senses, smell, taste, touch, sound. What might that be? Can we create something for children? And I'm not an artist, but I do have ideas. And then I bring artists on board to make that happen. And we created this installation, again, for the lack of a better word, where children had to enter a space, open drawers, and every drawer would have something to see, or something to touch, or something to listen to, or something to smell. And then they would have to go into a labyrinth made out of jute frames. And then there were different things to engage with through that maze. And then when you came out of it, there was a structure made out of hay, straw, very idol making tradition, really. So there was a structure and there was a pot of clay, and you were welcome to put the clay on the structure for as long as you needed. And then you walked out of that room through a path that had different surfaces to walk on. So you walked on water, you walked on stone, you walked on sand, you walked on various other textures, and then finally went into a room where your movements would change the music that you hear in the room. This was aimed for 6 years old, 6 years to 9, and I intentionally said that I don't want adults to come in. You'll have to just trust your children and send them here with us. It was called Elements because the idea was to engage with the elements. And I brought on board 5 artists to create all these various pieces. And then we had this whole structure that, we'll keep half an hour or 45 minutes per pair of children to go. So I also knew doing it alone might feel a little weird, and doing it with a group would also make it very, the experience won't be the same. So we said we'll have 2 children enter at a time, go through all the rooms, and every 10 minutes 2 more children can enter. So we made this whole elaborate, booking sheet. 10 o'clock, 10, 10, 10, 20, and then lunch break and all, whole plan was ready. We sent it out that, please book. No one booked. No one could understand what are you talking about. What is this room? Go to this room. Come out in half an hour. Parents are not allowed. We are not interested. This doesn't make sense. This is Christmas time, holiday time. No booking, 0. And I was like, okay, these artists are all here. Forget about all the money I've already spent. What am I going to do with these artists who have, were going to be there for another 4 days? And then I started making plans. Okay, Flurries has a nice Christmas lunch. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe, I started making plans to engage these artists. But there were, of course, there's a happy ending. Otherwise, I won't share this. There were 20 kids who had been to some Think Arts things before. Think Arts hadn't been around for too long. So they knew that, okay, it may be okay to take a chance and do it. And there was an NGO whose kids were going to come. So we had 40 kids. Our capacity was 500, we had 40. Okay, almost there, 10% almost. Chalo, theek hai. Not to be disheartened, let's start. I don't know what these 20 children did. I seriously don't know. They went back home, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Parents were signing up like how. Children wanted to come back, children wanted to come with their friends, and because the parents hadn't seen it, they were imagining something far more, full of wonder. Because the children had gone back and said, Mama, I've never seen something like this. I have to go back and I have to take Divit with me, I have to take my cousins with me. The phone won't stop ringing. We had definitely all slots full for the next few days. And parents calling to say, can you extend it? So the Flurries Christmas lunch didn't happen, but none of us were unhappy. So that was the starting, and then we took that to the National Museum in Delhi, where a lot of children again experienced it. But then I was keen to try it for a younger age group, because I said, how, can I include parents? Why leave them out? But then, can we do it for a younger age group? So then I was lucky to be chosen for a residency in Edinburgh. So I had 3 weeks to work with many other artists to try and develop something, and I called it Under the Table and Dreaming. And there were children crawling through under the table and feeling different textures as they crawled. And again, I felt often what happens is we leave our fingers and toes to be the, of palms and feet to be the spaces where we get our primary experiences from. But what if you had things touching on your shoulders and on your face? What would that be for a young person? And that was very, very well received. And I came back and then created something called Dreamscape, which is the video I want to show you.
Amazing. So I really enjoyed my first experience, which was in this closed space which has a painting on top, and it has these fairy lights on the side, and it's twinkling in there. It's very interesting. And you're able to experience touch, you're able to experience smell. Like I was so amazed to see that in the space where the wool, you can smell the wool, and we could play with it. We also enjoyed the sky. We kind of were very curious about how things are happening. The jungle was also very interesting, I feel. When we went into the jungle with the different set of layers which were laid down there, it was making stories of our world. So I think overall it was a wonderful and very beautiful experience. I think we all must go ahead and do that.
That was a small clip, and some of my experience with Dreamscape has been so beautiful. There was one parent who came and said, my son, I don't have a daughter, I have a son who's very naughty. I said, okay, and he's going to break all these things. So are you sure he can do it? And I said, it's okay, if he breaks, we'll just put it up again. These are, nothing is fragile, so please go ahead. I don't think, why would he break? I mean, what is this assumption that, I have a boy and he's naughty and he's going to break? And the boy went in, and I had to step out to take a call from a funder. So obviously I had to run out and take that call. And when I came in, it was just such a moving sight. They were in the forest table, and the child was looking at leaves and showing different leaves to his father, who was sitting just outside the table. And there was just a quiet moment of togetherness, calm togetherness that space had achieved. Another one was where this mom and child were lying down and looking at the painting and listening to the music. And it felt like I was intruding on a private moment, because the child just turned and put his hand on the mom's stomach, and they just kept listening to that for a long time. So these were spaces where it was also not rushed, so you could spend as much time as you wanted under whichever table that you wanted to. So just to share some, different experiences that one has been able to create, and the kind of responses one has received. But along this journey, what has really helped me has also been my curiosity, of course, and my desire to keep learning. I think that is something. Arts management, as you might know, might or may not know, is not a course offered in universities in India. So a lot of us learn along on the job. And so I knew that I didn't have a formal qualification really to do what I was doing. And some of my chartered accountancy background was perhaps helping, but not, fully. So how does one learn then if you don't have a formal degree? The way you learn is by joining these fellowship programs that are available. And in 2014, I went for the Atelier for Young Festival Managers. I was young then, and I was a festival manager then. And it was incredible. I was in a room with 50 people from I don't know how many countries. I had never seen people from so many countries in one room. And what that does is really allows you to understand, how together you are, how some challenges may be different in scale, but they still exist, how we are all finding solutions, like finding a barber or finding a last minute visa, how we are all in it, not because of the money, not because of the fame, but because of something intrinsically that is, moving each of us and wanting us to sort of be there. And the high that all of us get when we see a room full of audiences for a show, or when we see an artist get moved by what we've been able to create for them. So that has been very interesting. Then in 2015, I did something which is perhaps somewhat formal training in arts management. I got selected for the Art Think South Asia Fellowship. This is where we learned strategic planning, financial planning, HR, and this came at a great time because ThinkArts was just a little over a year old. I was thinking about how to structure this organization, how do we move beyond me and my colleague, how do we add more people, and what this fellowship also included was, apart from a 2-week residency where 15 of us were together, we also got chance to spend 1 month in Germany or in the UK training with an organization, and that was again, a completely eye-opening experience for me. But as much as the training abroad, I think being for 2 weeks with people from the region was incredible. I remember we were talking about challenges that we faced, and all of us had this long list of challenges that we had made. And this fellow, one of our fellows, he was from Iran, and he said, yeah, challenges, we might die, or someone might get killed. And we were like, oh, okay, I think we need to relook at what we call challenges. It was lovely to meet people doing very similar exercises in Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Nepal, and realizing, there is, and that felt a lot more sort of relatable than the atelier where I was meeting people from Europe, UK, with a very different funding structure, because the South Asian cohort was very much, similar in terms of the infrastructure that we operate within as well. In 2016, 2018, I got the ISPA Fellowship, which is the International Society for Performing Arts. I again had an opportunity to meet a bunch of people from the performing arts industry, attend sessions, understand different ways in which people work together. In 2017, I did an arts leadership program. This was again slightly formal. I don't know why the arrows aren't showing, but it was, so we went to Australia 3 times in a year for very intensive week-long modules on leadership. And the first, by then ThinkArts had grown and we had a team. But my goodness, I attended the first session and said, oh gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. This is not the kind of leader I should be. And I came back a new person, and the team was very happy because I said, you know what, I think I was micromanaging. I think I need to, delegate more. So I learned, so it was a really useful exercise. And again, an opportunity to meet people largely from Australia and Asia Pacific, in that cohort. I think these meetings are really, really valuable because you learn so much from experiences that people share. Everything is not in books. Today I lead arts management courses along with my colleague Pooja Sood from Khoj, and what we keep saying is that there are books today with chapters on strategic planning and how to run an organization effectively. So you really don't need to come to listen to us to share that, but what we bring are experiences, and that is really valuable in learning from each other. And the last one I did post-COVID was a Salzburg Global Fellowship Program. This was in the beautiful Salzburg, castle, one of the castles where Sound of Music was shot. So of course we had to all go there and take a picture and send it. But there was just one scene that was shot there, nothing major, but still, whatever, it was there. So we did that. So it is just to say that, since there are some young people in the room as well, that this journey of learning has to be something that continues, and the more you learn, the more you interact, the better you can do what you do yourself. This is me at Salzburg. I think I'm cropped off. Oh, there I am. Yeah. So this was at the beautiful castle. And this picture, this is the last festival that I attended before COVID locked everything down. I was in Yokohama, incidentally, where the cruise ship was docked at a festival called the Performing Arts Market in Yokohama, where again we met a bunch of people. So I have been really, really fortunate in my 25 years of having traveled across the world. I was just sharing with Avik outside that, people pay to take me there. I think largely it is because we've been presenting work. So when you present work, people want you to come and see the work that they're doing. But apart from those festivals, the fellowships also were opportunities for me to travel. I've been to Australia more times than anyone that I know other than Australians themselves. In fact, I've been to some places where even those Australian friends of mine haven't gone. And that, then I went to Salzburg. So these have all been opportunities that have come my way, which have really made me grow as a person, and I'm really, really thankful. We all know, I started by saying that, in the arts, one doesn't join, something in the arts for the money that they can make. But yes, these experiences and these really valuable networks that one builds is fabulous. So I think I'm doing good on time. I'm going to do this very, very quickly. Some things I learned, trust your gut. I have always, from big decisions to small, I have really relied on my intuition. And like we all know, psychologists have said, it's not a random thing, right? It is something that is there because of the experience that you have, and some of the subconscious memories also that work to inform you in a certain way. And I have always been scared to not trust it, because I feel if I don't trust it, then it will probably not work as well the next time. So let's just go by trusting it each time. And so far, I haven't really had any negative experiences. Stay anchored to purpose and values. I think, often, and I can again give you many, many examples of things that came our way in Think Arts or in Arthshila, which we could have said yes to, but they would have gone against our intrinsic values. And I think that's something super, super important. I think to really trust your values and to stay by them, and to never forget your purpose. What is the purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is it? And this is again something that's not necessarily only for an organization, even you personally, I think, or even me personally, I think we all have, and the purpose can change. Earlier this year, I was in conversation with the author of Ikigai at the Kolkata Literary Meet, and we were talking about this purpose and how it can change. It doesn't have to be the same purpose, but it's important that we find our purpose. Embrace uncertainty and learn to adapt. I don't think I need to talk about that post-COVID. All of us did that in COVID. In Think Arts, suddenly started doing so much stuff online. We actually even came up with grants for artists to create work that could be shown online. And I think that was the only way that one could, sustain themselves. And again, that's something that I've realized, and I do get upset and worried and anxious. I'm human, but I also know that there will be a way that one can deal with it and find a solution. Collaborations is super, 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 super important. Super. It's like, the most important thing, even if you're a very well-funded organization, even if you have everything set in place, and it's really good to bring someone else in or to go and work with someone, because it's also constant learning. It's of course it's shared resources and double the audiences, etc. But over and above that, it's also a great way to learn and build your own knowledge. Lead with empathy. I think, like I said, when I went to Australia, I don't think I was doing very good on that front. But over the years, I think one has learned that it's important to lead with empathy. I think sometimes some of us who are in positions where we are working with a team, it can get very difficult because we work always with a very short team, always with less resources, and always with a deadline. But I think it's something that I try and always remember, that empathy is key. So that's it, and I'm looking hopefully for another 25 years.